I'm aware that I have a spot, but I also don't care enough to wait 2 days to refilm this video. My name is Fion. I'm 20. I'm from the UK. I am non-binary, and I am dysphoric, not that I think it matters. Yeah, this video is coming about because I have a lot of opinions and feelings, and I feel like if I put them all into one concise video and then put it out there, then I can stop focusing on this and start doing something a little more productive with my time. So yeah, this video is a criticism of Kalvin Garrah. If you don't know who Kalvin Garrah is, God, I wish I were you. Kalvin Garrah is a trans YouTuber slash social media influencer who is well known within the trans community as being one of the core examples of what is known as a trans med. Now, I can't really go into depth in this video without really discussing the dysphoria debate, but I do want to say that it is a huge debate. It is an incredibly complex thing, and it's obviously not going to be easy to explain it concisely, but I will do my best. So the dysphoria debate is something that is raging within the trans community right now. Gender dysphoria is described by the DSM as the disconnection between your gender and your assigned gender at birth, whilst also including significant distress or problems functioning. This is what the discourse centers around. The group known as transmeds, or true scum, believe that gender dysphoria is a fundamental part of being trans, and in order to be transgender you need to have gender dysphoria. Meanwhile, people who are too cute or transmedic believe that it is not a requirement for being trans. Kalvin Garrah is one of the most famous examples of a true scum or a transmed. I myself am a too cute or a transmedic. I believe that dysphoria is not required to be trans. I will link all of my reasons why, all of my evidence for this in the description, because that's like a whole video for a whole another day, and it's a huge topic, and I don't have time to cover it right now. So this is where one of the key issues with Kalvin Garrah lies. Kalvin Garrah is perhaps most well known for his videos reacting to quote-unquote trenders. A quick description of what a trender is, according to Urban Dictionary, is someone who is pretending to be trans for clout or in order to seem cool. Kalvin Garrah has made several videos at this point where he reacts to quote-unquote trenders, or ranks trenders in a list, or reacts to crazy trans trenders, stuff like that. However, in Kalvin Garrah's mind, a trender is not just someone who knows they are cis but is pretending to be trans deliberately for attention or to be cool. It is someone who is either trans without dysphoria, or most commonly appears to be trans without dysphoria. In a lot of these cases, he has no idea whether or not someone is dysphoric, because like most things, you don't know if someone has a certain condition unless you specifically ask them. However, in a lot of these cases, he will be reacting to gender non-conforming trans people and arguing that because they act in a certain way, a way that he specifically wouldn't act because it would cause him dysphoria, then that means that they must not have dysphoria, therefore making them a trender. I know I said I wouldn't get into details about the dysphoria debate, but this is where the crux of the issue lies. Unless you have specific scientific evidence that backs up that dysphoria is in fact necessary in order to be trans, saying otherwise and saying that someone without dysphoria is cisgender is misgendering and is transphobic. He does claim to have scientific evidence that dysphoria is needed to be trans, but this kind of evidence can easily be debunked if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. One of the things that he most likes to mention is the brain scans that have been done. For example, I think there was a 2018 Harvard brain scan study which showed that dysphoric trans people had the same brain structures as cis people of the same gender, if that makes sense. However, the results of this study cannot be used to show that you need dysphoria to be trans. The study itself did not use any non-dysphoric trans people. Whether you think they exist or not, without including non-dysphoric trans people in those studies to see what their brain structures look like, you can't then say conclusively that dysphoria is needed to be trans as a result of those scans. I hope that makes sense. As I said, this debate is complex and intricate, and it cannot accurately be described in this one video. So I'm gonna move on. Kalvin Garrah makes these kind of videos because in his mind, and in a lot of trans meds' minds, these kinds of quote-unquote trans trenders are the people that are making the community look bad. They are the reasons that people are transphobic in 2019, but this is simply not the case. People who are transphobic do not care about logic. They don't care about what evidence you have. People who are transphobic that go out of their way to be transphobic will continue to be transphobic regardless of what evidence or logic you throw at them. That's one of the sad realities of being LGBT, is that sometimes you can't argue with these people. They just want someone to hate. And that sucks, but that's kind of just how it is. As for people who aren't actively transphobic, these call-out videos do nothing to help our cause. This constant unnecessary discourse within the community just makes us look disjointed and more confusing to people on the outside who might be deciding whether or not to accept a certain identity. In conclusion, these kinds of videos are nothing more than just senseless harassment and bullying of people in an already marginalized community. It does nothing to help the community. The second key issue that a lot of people bring up when they discuss Kalvin Garrah and the criticisms of Kalvin Garrah is his use of language. It's old news at this point that Kalvin Garrah has, on occasion, used slurs he can't reclaim. The F slur, the D slur. He is a straight trans man. He is not a lesbian, he is not a gay man. He should not be able to reclaim these slurs as they do not apply to him. Specifically, he's caught a lot of flack recently for using the R slur in a lot of his videos. So much so that he ended up making a half-baked apology post on his Instagram story, saying that he would never deliberately call someone who was neurodivergent by the R slur, completely neglecting to understand the reason why people were annoyed in the first place. It wasn't just that he had called someone belonging to the community which that slur was affecting by that slur, it was the fact that he was using it in the first place. Using that kind of a slur against anybody is terrible, and it's ableist and it's disgusting. Obviously, saying it towards someone who is disabled is even worse, but saying it at all is still disgusting, and that is something I don't think he quite understands. Then there's the matter of his flip-flopping between "I'm sorry for using this slur, I shouldn't have used it, I will not use it again," and "how dare you try and limit my free speech, I can say whatever I want." In a recent Instagram story, he went on a long rant about how he has the free speech to say whatever he wants to say, and if he wants to say the N slur, then he'll say the N slur. And it's just kind of like, it's not us trying to limit his free speech to say whatever gross slur he wants to say at the given moment. It's saying that maybe, as someone with a large following of largely children, he should perhaps think for more than 2 seconds about the consequences of saying words like that on the community. It's gross, it's not something that he seems to be learning from, because this is a problem that has been present for a while now, and does still seem to be present up to this day, and I don't quite think he understands why it's a problem. The final issue that I wanted to touch upon is one that I think I've mentioned previously. As someone who's LGBT myself, I know how scarce LGBT content creators are on the internet, which is why so many young LGBT people will flock to those content creators in order to seek validation of their identities, especially trans people. Young trans people will flock to trans YouTubers to be reminded that they are normal and that there is nothing wrong with their identities. Herein lies the major issue. Kalvin Garrah has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, a lot of those being young, impressionable children within the community. When such a large amount of Kalvin's content is him harassing strangers for the way that they present, regardless of what he then says to his fans, they are likely to emulate that behaviour. This is something that I personally have seen firsthand, as well as I'm sure hundreds of too cutes and trans medics on the internet have seen firsthand. I have been told to kill myself. I have been told that no one will love me. Not because I'm non-dysphoric, because I am dysphoric, but simply because I have the audacity to believe that dysphoria is not required. These people are proud Kalvin Garrah stans. Kalvin seems to flip-flop between saying things like, "I have no control over what my fans do, how dare you accuse me of trying to get my fans to harass people, but then simultaneously also calling out people on his story and telling his fans directly to go and pay them a visit or to give their opinions. He also has said on his Twitter that he wants his fans to harass people that he doesn't agree with. This is just a blatant example of punching down. He is someone with such a large following, and instead of using that following to maybe do some good, to fight against something bigger than himself, he is harassing and bullying people with much fewer followings, in many cases just total strangers, just because he can. These kinds of videos bring in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views for him. They undoubtedly bring him monetary gain. He has not stopped doing this because it is good for him. He does not care about the community, he just cares about his own monetary gain. Just, in conclusion, I understand why a lot of trans meds and true scum hold the view that they do. In this current day and age, it's incredibly scary to be trans. The idea that you can make yourself seem more valid, but all you have to do is put another group down, it's an incredibly enticing opportunity. And I understand especially why a lot of young people who may not have the support that they need will flock to that kind of ideology. But as I've mentioned, homophobes, biphobes, transphobes, they don't care about evidence, they don't care about logic. They will continue to be bigots, regardless of the science that we throw in their face. All that this discourse does is it leads to more problems within the community. You can't go onto a trans positivity page without going into the comments and seeing someone type, "only if you have dysphoria." I know that a lot of Kalvin stans, and Kalvin himself won't change his views. I'm stubborn in my opinions. I know that it takes a lot for me to change my opinion, and I understand that he and a lot of his fans are the exact same way. I just want him to maybe understand the consequences of his actions. I don't know if anything is going to change. I'd like it to, because I, for one, am tired of getting told to kill myself by 12-year-olds with the double sword emojis in their profiles. But yeah, maybe I'm asking too much. I hope this was coherent. This is the end of the video now.